As we've said many times on this program, redistricting reform is sort of like the new black. Could there be a redistricting bill on the horizon, one that could attract Republican votes in the state Senate? Bill author Senator David Valesky is here, fresh from a meeting on this very issue. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Susan.
So what's the latest?
Well, good news. The bill in the Senate continues to progress through the legislative process. The Election Law Committee today reported the bill with no opposition, no negative votes to the Senate Finance Committee. And this, of course, followed the actions taken 2 weeks ago in the Governmental Operations Committee. So we're going to, from my perspective as the lead sponsor in the Senate, going to continue to try to push this out onto the floor and get a vote by the full Senate as soon as possible.
If someone asked, I think, what is wrong with how we draw the lines now, I think that the response would be that the lines are drawn by the parties for the parties. It's sort of a political thing. Your bill changes that by creating a nominating committee of 8 people, I believe, 2 each selected by the legislative leadership, minority and majority parties.
Correct.
In the House and in the Assembly and the Senate. And in turn, they choose 40 members of a nomination pool.
That's correct. A nominations pool, 15 Democrats, 15 Republicans, and 10 individuals who are not affiliated with either the major political parties.
And that would mean like a working families party or a conservative party or
no party at all.
Or no, just unaffiliated.
Right,
okay.
Exactly.
There is another sort of complicated issue with the bill in terms of the timetable. I mean, I don't know who from NASA helped you with this thing, but let's just say that I was with a smart person and we were having a hard time figuring it out. Basically, you have ramifications and contingencies and a timetable. Can you explain why that was important?
Sure, be happy to. And first of all, I think it's important to note that whether the next redistricting is done by an independent commission, as I hope it will, or if it's done the old-fashioned way, nothing substantively is going to happen until we receive the census data from the federal government, obviously.
We have to wait.
We have to wait for the feds. Once that happens, under my bill, the independent commission process would begin no later than May 15th of 2011, so just about a year from now.
Okay.
The longest it could take, everything from the selection of the nominating committee to the pool to the independent commission itself, then the development of the proposals, the longest that process can take would be 7 months.
And the reason is?
The reason is the legislation contains a mechanism where, well, let me back up for a minute. The legislature still has to approve whatever the independent commission recommends. We give an opportunity as many as 3 different proposals that the commission can draw up. First proposal goes to the legislature, no ability for the legislature to amend. If the legislature rejects that, it goes back to the commission, public hearings, a second proposal. If that's rejected again by the legislature, back to the commission, public hearings again, and then the third and what would have to be the final version for an up or down vote by the legislature could in fact be subject to legislative amendment. Again, this is because we're not amending the state constitution, so we have to, the framework has to be within the existing structure of the New York State Constitution. But, if I could just add this, Susan, I think perhaps most importantly from a timeline perspective, the longest it could take would mean this process would be finished by the end of 2011. 10 years ago, the last time we did this, the new legislative lines were not in place, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, until the summer of 2002,
it
literally
took a long time.
3 months before elections were going to take place. So we'll be way ahead from a schedule perspective, way ahead of where they were 10 years ago.
The point that I'm hoping that listeners glean here is that we can't just do this anytime we want. There's a particular timetable here if it's going to be effective and workable for the people who are actually pulling the lever or whatever kind of machine we end up using on that day. So you said at the beginning of our conversation that there were no gripes about it in the committee. What does that mean in terms of votes on the floor, or does it mean nothing?
Well, I guess in a sense that still remains to be seen. It's always encouraging as a member of the legislature when you have a bill in front of a committee, regardless of what the bill is, when it does not attract a single negative vote.
There's no red pen.
Obviously a very good thing, right? There's no red pen on anyone's voting sheet this morning. That's a good thing. It still, as I indicated, it still has the Senate Finance Committee hurdle to clear. And then from there, would be reported to the floor of the Senate for a full vote. I believe, again, and those who are convinced that doing the next redistricting is as significant a reform as we could possibly do here in Albany, and many people are of that belief. I can't imagine this not having widespread bipartisan support when we get to that full vote in the Senate.
There is another issue, and that is that, enrollment in New York is heavily, I think it's 2-1 Democrat over Republican. That said, I think that Republican and additionally the people who are not affiliated could overwhelm the Democrats.
I think the important thing to underscore, though, Susan, is we have modeled this bill after what some other states have done. Iowa has done this, for example, California more recently. And in the case of Iowa, which used an independent commission 10 years ago, they went from a situation where they had, I believe, no competitive elections in their congressional races to at least 3 or 4 very competitive races. So from the perspective of good government, creating good competitive elections, and the notion of creating our Senate and Assembly and congressional districts to keep communities whole, this notion of compact and contiguous districts, I think it makes all the sense in the world. And to have, again, others outside the process having a lead role in drawing these lines is critical.
Senator David Volesky, what a pleasure. Thank
Thanks
you
for
very
having me.
much.